Okay, welcome to our July 26th post-service discussion. We are discussing actually my service, which was titled Unlikely Ministers. And we have a good group here today. So does anybody want to get us started? Just hands go up if, okay, so, oh, great, okay. Well, let's start with Nell since she's new. So I just asked you to unmute. There you
Oh,
go.
I identified with your very first mentor was your voice teacher.
Yeah.
And then the second one was the piano.
Yeah.
I never could sing. I had my choir director when we went out um, one Easter Sunday and we all filed out in front of the congregation. She whispered to me, "Nell, God wants you to whisper the words today." So that gives you an idea of what kind of voice I have. But my piano teacher, I'm terrible at piano, but she kept at it with me, and at least, I had a nice relationship with her, and it was fun to do for the 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So, but the one
Yeah.
that affected me was my art teacher in high school. who has She was probably one of the kindest, most encouraging teacher I ever had.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things for me is, when a student shows a spark of talent or passion, I think it's easy to be encouraging then. But for Wendy, who was my voice teacher, that I showed no real talent. I had a lot of passion, but I didn't have any real talent for singing. And to be encouraging in that uh, instance, I think really takes something. It's a special teacher that's able to do that, I think. What
My teacher was like that,
Yeah.
but there was nothing there for her to work with. So
Right, right. Well, yeah, me too. So,
no, you can play both the piano and sing. So there's something there.
but honestly, if you would have heard me when I was like 12, 13, now, of course, boys at that age, the voice is just, it's not your friend,
Yeah.
when, when you're going through those early teenage years. But it was hard. It was really hard. I practiced for an hour to 2 hours every single day to try and learn how to sing. So yeah, that's something. JC, I think wanted to jump in. Go ahead. I just asked you to unmute, JC.
Mute.
There you
Okay.
go.
I just have a general thing that I want anybody who listens to this, and all of you to know. Tears really flowed as the familiar bits of the church service happened. Just Nell's hanging,
Mhm.
even the name tags on the ribbons. It was just us apart at our screens. I really, really love being part of this group.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody can feel that and can know that we are a lot to each other, even as we try to be whole.
Mm.
So that's just my message.
That's beautiful.
Also, Michael, it made me think, well, why don't I stop and sort of think who were my mentors? And I haven't come up with any yet. So
Yeah. Well, maybe we can visit that in a moment. Lillian, I see your hands up, and by the way, I 100% agree. The church is a special group of people. There's something very, very cool about about having all of you as friends and family. Let's. So Laleen had her hand up, but Glennis, I think, was first. So, oops, there we go.
Oh,
Yep, you should be able to
okay.
talk.
Well, I have a couple of things. I think that the more that we can bring in that familiarity, the better. And I celebrate each new person we manage to get on this discussion after the service airs. So I'm glad to see you, Nell. I'm really very glad to see you. Another thing that you came up with that was more at the beginning of your talk was the "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
Thing, and I always just say, especially if I'm really feeling like crap, I would say, "Well, do you want the truth or the standard lie?"
Right.
You know, quite often, some of them, well, give me the lie. You know,
Right. Right.
well, then I'm fine. You know, but a lot of this was, "How are you doing?" directly after my boyfriend Roy died. You want to shout, "How do you think I'm doing?" You know, I'm doing crappy, you know. But at the same time, you know, the question is coming from a place of care, so you can't do that. And I do find that difficult. So yeah, I'm mumbling. As well as can be expected, you know, or something, because I don't like to just say I'm fine, you know, especially if they really did want to know. But that's why the question: you want the truth or the standard lie, you know? And quite often those will give me the truth, you know. And well, it depends on who it is. The other thing is that on the subject of mentors, and I'll just make this real quick, is that I've had several, and two of them were bosses, and so one of them is a woman, one of my first bosses. She was a triple amputee, never ever spent, she had a left arm left, and it had been the result of a car train accident when she was in her 20s. She went on and started a business, had a child. Her business grew enough to where there were 10 employees. She was never one second on the dole. So that just kind of illustrated the pluckiness and the resilience that had been talked about in earlier sermons as well. You know, and how do you build up from something like that? And that was in the form of a mentor for me. That was one of the more important ones.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. When you were talking about your boss, that reminded me of this motivational speaker, and I just Googled his name. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but maybe I'll include a link to some of his talks because the guy is just utterly amazing. Nicholas James Vujicic. Is anybody familiar with him? Yeah, so here's a guy. This guy has like no arms and no legs. He was born this way, you know, as deformity. And he, you know, he swims. You know, he's able to kind of walk. He's able to. But anyway, he primarily makes his money as a motivational speaker. The guy is amazing. And he's got like the most beautiful wife anybody's ever seen. Like the guy is super successful anyway. So that, you know, it's amazing what a human spirit, you know, if you are resolute, what you can accomplish is just, you know, just absolutely amazing.
One final thought, especially when it comes to music, is that I know of I think he's passed on now, but there was a bass player over on the coast that was missing a right arm, but he would make his pickup so hot that he could just finger him.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
Cool. Yeah.
he was an amazing bass player. As a matter of fact, I have to bow down, you know, not because of, you know, being able to play at all, but because of what he was playing was amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you just need to really want to. And that's the other thing I would speak to as far as you talked about rehearsing a lot or practicing a lot with your voice. That is motivation. And the more if you can find a mentor that either motivates you like that or models the motivation. I think that is very helpful in your life.
Yeah, and well, that's a good lesson too, you know, is that modeling the behavior that we want to inspire, especially in young people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I was at the dump yesterday, and there was this elderly man. I didn't know at the time. He ended up, he is 93 years old, you know, and he was emptying the back of his truck with just like really heavy wood and stuff like that. And I was getting ready to go, and then I noticed him, and I thought, you know, gosh, I should really help this guy out. So I asked, you know, do you need a hand? And he's like, sure. And so, you know, we're like moving furniture and stuff like that into the dump. But in the process, he broke some fluorescent lights. And there were these two kids, and they were probably, you know, 9, 10, something like that. And nobody asked them, nobody said anything. They grabbed the broom and they started, you know, sweeping up the broken glass from, you know, and I was like, you guys are awesome, you know, thank you so much that, you know, and so clearly, you know, there is a sense of responsibility that's been instilled in them and modeled for them. But yeah, you know, that we have to keep that in mind, you know, that maybe young eyes are watching us, you know, and what kind of influence are we going to be? So let me get to Laleen, because there we go. Okay.
I was struck, Michael, by your starting so young, and it encouraged me to do the same thing. I don't know that I looked back at youth mentors. And as I started to do that, I realized that in my early life, there were some pretty negative happenings. And out of those came some of the most powerful experiences of lifelong learning. And I wanted to share a couple of those. The first one was actually my mother. As a child, my first 4 years or so, I lived in a pretty violent involved father. And in the middle of the night, one night, my brother, sister, and mother and I escaped. And it was all prearranged. We went to this little tiny apartment, and it was magical, and it was also scary. And then I began to realize, wow, I'm not so scared anymore. And then the scary didn't stop, because my father kept trying to get back at my mother and found us in schools and kidnapped us. And my mother took us to the Midwest. And the day we arrived in this foreign country, I started to feel safe. And so what I learned from that was about courage and about not having to stay somewhere that's not good or kind or loving, and that no matter how difficult it might seem, my mother or I could pick up and, and change that environment. Mm-hmm. And I just realized, oh, that experience is cemented and fixed for me emotionally. And then that led me immediately into the experience that I had right after we arrived in Kansas City. We lived in a kind of a ghetto area and in a walk-up tenement because we didn't have any money. And my first friend was a little black girl, and we played together all summer. And then when it was time to go to school, I said to her the day before, I'm going to come over and we'll go to school together. And she just looked at me with these huge eyes, and I could hear her crying. She whirled and started running home, and I started chasing her because, all summer I'd been in her house and she'd been in mine. And she got there first and she slammed the door and it was locked. And I could hear her on the other side crying and crying and crying. And I kept knocking. And finally her mom opened the door and she said, Lillian, so-and-so can't talk to you right now. And I need you to go home and talk to your mother and ask her about prejudice. And she shut the door in my face and that it never happened. And so I went home and I did. I asked my mother and she sat down and she told me all about segregation. And my friend had to go to one school and I had to go to another. And, you know, it was going to be my first day in a new school. But it was my friend who was crying and, you know, I was crying. And I gained from that such a deep empathy and a deep understanding, you know, for, well, everything surrounding that at a 6-year-old level, you know. And I was just so grateful for the negativity of the experience because of the way in which it, you know, has shaped a huge part of my future in adult life to this very, very day. So I kind of just wanted to add that, you know, because I hope that other people who are listening and hearing realize that mentors can come in all shapes and forms and all different kinds of experiences, and that sometimes, you know, as you commented early, experiences of loss or other things can be the most powerful, and yet ultimately they can, you know, be the most life-changing or deeply personality-changing.
Yeah. Is it terribly rude for me to ask how old you are, Lillian?
I'm 78. I'm going to be
70.
79.
So you are the same age as my mother. And my mother, yeah, my mother has almost the exact same story about a young Black girl that she played with as a child, where you know, the prejudice of the time and the, you know, that the experience of it was something that really cemented her valuals early on, you know.
She and I have swapped a lot of stories, not
Yeah.
all of them about you.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm going to ask her about that one.
Yeah, you should and
will.
yes, because oh god, she will talk to anybody about her children, you know, that who will listen. It's terrible. Okay, so here we go. Who's next? No. Okay. See, you know, normally, yeah, Connie, I see you, Connie. There we go. Normally, like if the conversation stalls and we have a guest in here who's a guest speaker, then I can keep things going by saying something to the speaker. But if it's me, then, you know, then it's just the silence and crickets chirping. Connie, I've asked you to unmute. There you go.
Well, I have a couple questions about things that you talked about, but the first one that I have is, well, I guess specifically about your first mentor, Wendy. Anyhow, I thought you did a really good job of telling what each one, that important message. But I wondered, after I listened to you talking to Wendy, I got to know if you ever told her.
That is a great shame in my life. And actually last night as I was uploading, I Googled her phone number. And so I thought I really do. And this is not just something that I thought of recently. This is something that has been plaguing me my entire adult life, is that I need to let this woman know the impact that she had on my life. So I have not yet, but I think I'm going to do that today. So.
And the other mentors, did, like Dennis? I just wondered,
yeah,
if you were young when a lot of these things happened, but I just wondered if you had a chance to tell any of those people?
Hmm. So Jean, she died of lung cancer. My piano teacher, and this is, you
Oh,
know, and I thought of her because as of this week, I am working very hard on being a non-smoker. You know, she uh, she 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 died of lung cancer when I was 16 years old. And I wanted to
mm,
go see her one last time because we all knew she was on her way out, and so I went to her trailer, to her house, um, and I knocked on the door, and there was nobody came to the door, and that was the last time I tried. And that was that to this day that still that haunts me a little bit. I have one picture of her, you know, at the piano, and um, you know, it's like, God, you got to validate the people in your life while you can. You know, you've got to let them
mhm.
know how you feel while you can, because you know, tomorrow's not promised. Syl and I, the sax player, we talk regularly, and every once in a while I'll share updates with Gail on Facebook. So
And Gail, is Gail the woman from the Music
yeah,
Academy?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, she, you know, and also one thing that I didn't mention about her in the talk was, and this is just shows you what a great, what working for a really great leader is like. You know, that I never asked for a raise. You know, I never had to. You know, because
Hmm.
she saw what, you know, she saw how hard I was working, and as soon as she could afford it, she gave raises to all of her employees. You know, and you know, just such a giving woman, but not, and but successful at the same time. That's what's so amazing about her. You know, is that she was so generous, but she was so sharp when it came to business that, you know, the business turned out to be an incredible success story. You know, so it's a rare combination.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I have one other,
Yeah.
just a comment that you might want to make more information or somebody else. The sentence you said where you can come through anger and rage
Hmm.
and still have something to give. I thought that was such an important statement in your talk.
Yeah.
And how many people need to be told that? So, do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, just to say that, you know, what is the Buddhist quote, you know, that holding on to rage,
Hmm.
you know, is like drinking poison and hoping that somebody else dies from it, you know, that the
Yeah.
person you're angry about. And you know, I have been wronged in my life, as I'm sure all of you have been wronged, and and how easy it is to give in to hate. You know, it's so easy to give in to anger and to rage, but when you choose to do that, there's the Christian idea that you become what you hate. You know that, and why is that? It's because I think that you take on a mentality of revenge, right? So you want to do unto others what has been done to
Hmm.
you, and that's how you become what you hate. So you've got to forgive. You've got to, you know, and it's not just a matter of letting go. It's a matter of actual forgiveness. And, you know, if you believe in prayer or you believe in meditation, you know, you've got to pray for your enemies. And that's why, because that anger, and I know this because I've been through it, will eat you alive. It's not, it's a beast that is never satiated. You know, that
Yeah.
anger only begets more and more anger and more rage. And this was something that Syl, you know, was so, that he was a living proof of this. But because nobody had wronged me or I hadn't been through the kinds of things that Syl went through, I just took it for granted. You know, it was just the way Syl was. Now that I've actually been through real trials, you know, now I get it. You know, and that's a conversation worth having with him. You know.
Well,
So,
I also think that you know, so often we take somebody's anger personally.
Yeah.
And so in that statement that you said, the immediate thing I thought of is when you said, and we still have something to give.
Yes.
I thought, wow, you know, maybe there's something I'm not doing in communicating with a person who's angry or fearful or whatever. That line of communicating to them in a way that you still have something to give, like feeding them back, that kind of thing, rather than taking their anger personally.
Right. And in giving, I think we are redeemed. You know, I truly believe that that redemption comes from service. You know, well, thank you, Connie. That was
Thanks.
great. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I see you, Lillian. I'll ask you to unmute and. Oh, you're still muted. Wait. Let's see. We're getting a great shot of her finger. Maybe.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I kind of wanted to add, given how Connie has facilitated with your comments, taking me a step further. There are so many things that happen to us, to me, to everyone in our lives that can create deep angers. Sometimes they're circumstances over which no one has any control, like some other person dies. You know, sometimes it's institutional, and sometimes it's even something that I or you as a person might have done. And for me, I think the greatest learning in my life, from my life experience, has been to ultimately take those strong feelings of either hurt or anger and embrace them, because if I don't go through them, I will carry them. But embrace them, and then I always find a way forward for change. And change can be something about, like the death of my brother, who was the closest person in my world. When he died of AIDS, 16 other friends died the same year. And for me, it was like sharing with him before he died the ways in which he was going to live on inside me. And then after he died, you know, holding on to those movies, all of those many, many, many memories. And then taking that next step and knowing that I had something to share, and I could work in Shanti, I could work in AIDS Project LA, I could make a change. And the same way about, you know, the abuse situation when my mother ran away. You know, I have such empathy for women who get caught up, you know, in situations where they're trapped. And so, you know, again, it's been being kind of a vehicle of change. Starting the Battered Persons Program, or helping to do that here in Roseburg in 80. I mean, that was a long time ago. And then like the racism thing, I mean, my God, I've fought that one my entire life, and I'm not done yet.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's amazing how loss, you know, can, if okay, on one hand, you know, you have a choice to be angry over loss or grief, but on the other hand, that can just fill you to the brim with compassion and empathy when somebody else goes through the same thing, you know. And I think that is the most important thing to remember. Yeah. Oh dear, is Laleen frozen? Looks like we lost her. She froze and then we lost her. Okay, cool. Kim, I usually have to call on you. You feel like sharing anything? You know, actually, if you don't mind, um, you shared a story with me once about the woman who took care of Tim, your husband, as he was dying in the hospital, as being an individual that you were grateful for. Is that
Yeah.
am I putting you on the spot too much?
No, I remember it was one of my piano students' mom, and we knew the parents for over 9 years teaching their kids piano, and they had known he was sick and had seen him, and was actually called him and saying, "You need to go to the doctor," and he still wouldn't do it. But so I called her. Fortunately, I put all the phone numbers in the car, so I called her and said, I'm in the hospital and they're saying it's really serious and all this stuff. And so she's really busy. She teaches at college, and I don't know what the dad does, but they came over and she stayed with me till 3 o'clock in the morning at the hospital that night.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful for it, because I would have been just alone. And you know, she was talking to Tim, even though he couldn't hear anything, and saying, pull out of it. But, you know, it was I was very gratified having her there.
Yeah. Yeah. Those bits of kindness, you know, stick with you, you know, in what was otherwise probably an impossible situation.
Yeah, I mean, I called my boss, literally, and she was at her son's birthday party. I felt so bad. She said, "It's okay." And then I realized, then that's when I remembered the piano student's parents that knew about it. So that's when I called them and everything. But even my boss came the next day and was praying with everyone else as if we knew each other. You know, everyone knew each other. We're in a circle, and I was like amazed that she was that much into it. And she's just my boss, you know. I just knew her for 6 months.
Yeah.
So a lot of kind people out there when you're going through stuff.
You know, and you're one of those people. You know, when my wife died, it was a great comfort being able to talk to you, because, you know, having been through such a similar thing, you know, so it's amazing how, like, we come full circle, you know, trying to do for others the good things that have been done for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher all my life, my working life. I just hope that I was a good mentor to all the kids that I've taught. Like, you've had teachers that were that way. I just hope I've touched a lot of kids out there and still will touch them.
Yeah. Well, those early, you know, because you primarily work with the really little ones.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, and that's where, you know, what's the poem that everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten? You know, right? You remember that thing? Robert Fulghum, is that who did that? Yeah, I'd have to look it up, but you know, there's truth there. It's like, God bless our preschool and our kindergarten teachers, because, you know, if they don't get socialized, if they're not able to be around other children at that age, there's a good possibility that they'll never learn how to be
Right.
good and social, you know, and be able to enjoy school. You know, it's like one of the most vital jobs out there, you know, and I don't think we give enough credit to the people who are doing that work, in my opinion, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm sure you do. I'm sure, I think number one is you've got to love that work, and that's what I see from you, that
Yeah,
that
I always like working with young kids.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Now, on the point of anger,
Yeah.
I've had my own personal anger issues with Tim's family members, and I don't want to. I'm not forgiving them or anything because they put me through a lot of crap that I didn't need to be put through, and I ended up having anger with God for taking Tim away, even though it's not his fault. I get that, but that's why I started going to church and stuff and kind of working through that. And now I'm less angry at him. But I'm like, why do you take him away? You could have helped get him better, but obviously you can't. But anyway, that's I've done a lot of crying and praying over it over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Still do.
Recently, I reconnected with an old mentor of mine. I did an interview for the Faith Discussions series that we're doing, Surinder Singh, Professor Surinder Singh. And it was about, 8 years ago or so, I think. We were in Detroit. And we talk about this in the video. And he's giving a sermon, and he asked me, because I was married at the time, do you ever fight with your wife? And I was like, of course, like when you're when you're married, you're just going to fight, you're going to argue. And he said, your relationship with God has to be the same way. If you've never been angry with God, then you don't have a relationship with God, and and of course, not everybody believes in God, and that's fine. But I've kept that with me, throughout the years. And it's like, if you're angry at God, or if you hate God, or if you, just realize that that's built into the relationship, that's part of the friction, and God, yeah. Did you have more to say? Did you want to? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You got to unmute. Oh. Yeah. I think you have to unmute yourself. No, you're still muted. Let's see. Maybe you could type. Oh, there you go. You got it.
Yeah. It came up. I forgot what. But I love that with the last talk you had with your friend. It made me think a lot about how I need to be more happier and less sad, even though I am always sad, and to try to. So I was doing that yesterday. I was kind of humming to myself. And one of the church friends was saying, "You keep humming to yourself, huh?" I go, "Yeah, I'm a little happy," and I was kind of excited because I can start playing really hard music that I couldn't play, and so I was really cool about that. So I'm just humming around, happy, trying to be real happy. But yeah, he brought up a lot of points. I thought, oh, I need to start doing better at.
Me too. I felt exactly the same way. It kind of shamed me a little bit into like taking better care of myself. So
Don't go to church just to go to church.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yep. All right. So Sharon, you asked a question. It says, who were you talking to?
You kept telling somebody to unmute, but you didn't say which person.
Oh, it was Laline and then Kim.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you could even see me because when I raised my hand, you haven't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I must have missed you. I did not mean to. I did not mean to ignore you.
Sure you didn't. There
Yes.
must have been a reason that I was given more time to think.
Right, right.
Every time somebody comes up with the question, who has been an inspirational teacher to you? I have no answer.
Oh,
I have all these teachers that have been in my life, but I vowed I was not going to be like that person.
oh, wow. Okay.
And I always had like a great person that I admired, like Gandhi.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's who I would usually answer once I became familiar with his works. But I remember one musical professional that really meant something to me. And then it had a very, very sad ending because I never got to really study with the person. He was a college professor that went 36 miles to direct the choir at my church where I grew up. And he organized a youth choir, which I was in. And he would encourage me to keep singing and keep going. And so through 6 years, I vowed that I wanted to go to the college where he was teaching and be a student. And when I got there, he had retired.
Oh.
And so it was just really ironic.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot. I was interested in your prelude to your sermon about the Fred Meyers young man.
Yeah, he was
so
funny.
significant if we can remember how we answer that question, how are you? And then this other real inspirational thing that I wish I knew more about was what you said Gail gave to you about business.
Yeah.
Because that's so important in any endeavor. And I got no guidance whatsoever in how to develop a piano studio.
Yeah. Well, so there's a perception, that piano teachers, especially the ones who teach out of their homes, that it's this casual thing. It's, and it's just something that like housewives do on the side, and it's not at all. It's a business, it's a job, it's a profession, and I also had a professor in college for my bachelor's degree, Beth Klingenstein, who wrote a book about managing a home studio business, and so that was also a great help. But yeah, I hear you. If I didn't have that guidance, I probably wouldn't have done it. Yeah. Yeah, the negative example is something that is easy to overlook, of like, I don't want to be like this person. And I had to make a conscious decision, with my first voice teacher, who, when you're a male and you work with young people, you work with children, the last thing in the world that you ever want people to know about you is that you were sexually abused as a child, and so for that reason, I don't talk about it, very openly at all. But, having had that experience was what it taught me how to view power in relationships.
Oh,
To never exert power on another human being, and and the necessity of that lesson, you know. So I hear you. You know, if like I've had plenty of bad experiences with mentors and teachers, also, you know.
Mhm.
So
One last thing I'd like to say is in response to Glennis said that how the teacher would motivate you.
Yeah.
Well, my teachers didn't really motivate me. I motivated myself because I wanted to do it so badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that part of it too. I'm
Well,
finished. Thank you.
no, you never have to be finished. But thank God that was built into you, or that you were that you accessed that for yourself, you know, because that's an amazing thing. So, all right. Do I need to call on Glennis? We go. I'll go all college professor on.
Sure. Yeah, that was part of my point too, was instilling motivation within yourself. And I can only draw on my own musical background as well. I had a piano teacher that she was a good piano teacher, and I remember her telling my mother, I think she's got it. But then I still suck at piano. And the problem is because there was a whole gap of not playing it. But then I had other teachers that, like a band teacher that thought that we had too many clarinets and he really needed a bassoon player. So he trusted me to take that bassoon from the school and go into the practice room and learn how to play bassoon within amount of time. And I actually knew him later in life, and was able to thank him, you know, for the vote of confidence that he had given me, which was more important to me than whether or not I could actually do it. And so that, and then much later in life was learning to play bass, and it was only because my ex-husband trusted me again that I would learn to play this instrument. He really wanted a bass player pretty badly. So anyway, it's a matter of, for me, the positive, the mentoring came in the form of a positive vote of confidence, basically. And you know, and my father was kind of the same way too. He didn't see gender when he handed out chores at all. And I was in charge of mowing lawns from the age of 9 on. Lots of lawns. We had, because we were building houses at the time, lots of building. And you know, the thing of it is that he taught me how to take care of myself. For example, I could not drive, after I got my driver's license, I could not drive a car until I showed him that I could change the tire and jump the car battery. Wow. And I had to show him that. So that kind of mentoring is, you know, I trust you to move forward with this. And I think that that's very important too, as well as watching someone modeling behavior, which I've had many, many good mentors. Not all of them are teachers at all. In fact, not very many of them were. I've had teachers that were not very helpful, frankly. But it's a matter of instilling that trust that you can do this, and maybe I'll show you how, or maybe I'll show you how to figure it out yourself. One of the two, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, he was raising an independent woman, you know.
I have thanked him so many times for that.
Yeah.
Over the years. I thank God, Dad, thank you so much for that. Right. As I'm jacking up my own car. Thank you for teaching me this.
Right.
Now I'm older, I can't break the lug nuts, so I have AAA. But
okay. Well, hey, you know, that's but what it mattered while you could do it.
Yes, good.
We have been joined by Lois. You know, so we're winding down, but maybe Lois, you feel like kicking in some 2 cents?
I think I was trying to think of her name. I forgot her name. It's too bad. But the reason that she helped me in life was because she listened to me. And that was something that was really needed in my life. Just the presence and feeling that I was worth something. Yeah, and that is a tremendous help when you're trying to learn anything.
Yeah.
Yes. And I had trouble getting into this because my computer just came out of the shop and I had to reload Zoom and had all kinds of trouble, or I would have been here earlier. But I did listen to your sermon on Facebook. So that was really, no, on YouTube. And it was very good to hear that there are people along our lives that we really count on, and they think they're nothing, but they're really the bedrock of what we are.
Yeah.
And they're very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well, very well said. And hey, you know, better late than never. You know, I'm just glad you got in, and you know, you get to see everyone. Well, I am satisfied with today's discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts to close us out? No, I'm seeing no's. Okay. Well, let me just. Sorry.
Were there other people here that are not with us right now?
There's currently 7 of us in the room.
I see 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, you know, let me just reiterate how much it means to me, you know, to be a part of this community, and how really this community has seen me through probably things that I'm not sure I would have survived otherwise. So you have my gratitude for that. It's always a privilege to be able to do the sermon, and thank you for showing up to the Zoom talk. So I hope you all have a lovely Sunday. Bye-bye.